Thanks for tuning into the video, guys. I'm actually doing, for once, the intro after I've recorded everything. So, basically, guys, in the video today, we make two lineups, okay, for game week 102. Probably the most expensive lineup probably not the most expensive, but definitely the most powerful lineup I could make. And I've attempted to make a super cheap lineup for the global D4 without using any commons. And I think we did pretty well. I think we're around that quarter coin mark that we were after. But I just wanted to let you know in the intro, because the video is a bit longer than normal, that's what we go through. In the first 10 minutes, there's a lot of kind of sneaky hints and tips in terms of how to assess what tournaments to enter and that kind of stuff. And then the second 10 minutes is about picking the team, how to select a captain, all that kind of stuff. I hope you enjoy it. If you're new around here, obviously subscribe, subscribe, share, retweet, all that good stuff, guys. Stay out of trouble, and I hope you enjoy it. Take care. Good afternoon. How are we doing? So, guys, I am the only one in the house. So, the laptop and me, we've went a wander and we found ourselves in the living room. If you can maybe tell from who's directly behind me, my missus takes to deal with all the decorating and whatnot. But anyway, enough of that. So, I woke up to some really good news this morning. I just finished the new to SoRare playlist, and I revamped it and uploaded it all yesterday. But in that, I kind of talk about using the Tools of the Trader playlist that's on the channel, just different apps and different websites and stuff like you can go and get your hands on to find out stats and success rates and previous results, that sort of thing. But on two apps especially, one's called FootMob, FUTMOB, and the other one is called SofaScore. Both of them allow you to actually follow and favourite individual players. So on FootMob, I use that for my football index portfolio, and in SofaScore, whenever I'm buying anyone on SoRare, I make them my favourite on that, because SofaScore seems to have a good kind of coverage of especially things like the Japanese and NLS and these different divisions. So I woke up this morning and the notifications were all off. Your player got this rating, your player got that rating. So I had a lot of players that played last night that I didn't deploy in squads because a few of them were injury concerns or they had mysterious absences from the squad. The funny thing about, I'll touch on this briefly, but the funny thing about MLS now is because of all the COVID stuff and whatever, some of the managers have managed to get away with not really disclosing why somebody isn't available. I can't remember who. Alan Pulido was back on the bench last night for Kansas, and Zella Ryan, both of those guys, Zella Ryan's at Crew, the Crew, Columbus, and both those guys, there was no real reason for, no obvious reason I could find from the podcasts I listened to and the snooping I did on the internet. But anyway, they were back. So I had a lot of great notifications to wake up to this morning. But as you can see, Champion America D4 and Under 20 Division D4, super close for a wee hat-trick this week. But the D4 All-Star, we've hit up top tier position. Number 7 in the leaderboard. There's no more games to be played. I think there's a China Super League game going on this morning, but that's the last of it for this match day. So we finished number 7. I think we've had a couple of top 10 finishes now. Definitely a couple of top 20s. So this squad just missed out. Tommy McNamara didn't play. I think if he plays, we bag something there. Big fan of Tommy McNamara because he's quite cheap at the moment. Unlucky there. And then this is the team that actually went on and bagged as a tier 2 rare. Chanatip wasn't even on the bench. He returned to the squad in the last match day, so I was hoping he would play some sort of a part. And if he did, we could have broke into that top 3 potentially, depending on how well he may or may not have done. And even if you look, we're restricted on power for this D4 because the Johnny Russell is in power 9 without that captain multiplier. And the goalkeeper and then my midfielder and my defender are both 0.83. So we had to get a weak power rating player to squeeze that into D4. And I think if we'd managed to get somebody who was playing, we could have easily finished top 3. And then this division here, Castellanos started, which was lovely. The rest of it was all quite expected. We just fell short of some of the points just to get us into that scoring threshold to bag anything. But good all-round score, decent points, and I think my captain selection here, Morgan's, was let me down. If I'd picked Gutman or even Tanny for that matter, I would have probably just made the threshold to maybe get a tier 3 payout on that. So anyway, I've been in a good mood with that. Like I said, the living room's free, so I thought I'll do my entries. I had them done already, and I kind of touched on this in my Twitter threads and discussions and whatever. But I normally do them as soon as they become open, just kind of do a draft, just kind of like, right, oh, I can put 2 squads into America, I can put 3 under 23 squads, or I can do this and I can do that, and whatever. But the last 24 hours, I've went and picked up 3 new cards. I went and got an Andre Blake, goalkeeper for Philly U, Brendan Arneson at Philly U as well, but I bought him, he was on auction last night, and the main reason I went and bought him is it looks like there's a transfer imminent to Europe, which means he'll be discontinued in terms of the SoRare cycle. So I was looking at that thinking this could be the last auction I get for him. So I'll go and do that. And then this morning I've been, as I mentioned on the new SoRare playlist, I rely on my favourites list quite a lot. And one of my favourites has popped up, a Daichi Kamada. He popped up. It was a 18-19 season when he was on loan at St. Truden from Frankfurt. So we managed to get him. He's only on level 1, which is bizarre for how old the card is. So anyway, we've got a new goalkeeper. We've got another midfielder in a champion European squad, Frankfurt, German. So I thought I'll just delete my entries and we'll make a wee video and we'll just plug on and I'll show you kind of the thought process I have when I'm going through it and making some lineups and sort of the variables I take into consideration. The very first thing I do is I always look at the D4 global entries, right? Because the D4 global, everyone should have a team in this every week. Even if you think it's absolute dog shit and it's not going to do anything for you, if you can get a DNP, a common goalkeeper, and muscle up a squad together, no matter where else you're hedging your bets for your actual players that you're backing, you know, the Challenger Europe, the Americas League, maybe the under-23s, whatever, you should always try and squeeze something into that D4 global because you can just get lucky sometimes, and the points threshold is not the lowest, but it's as low as you can really hope for, I suppose, because it is global. You know, you can get any combination of a lineup in here. So when I look at this and I see 613, I'm probably expecting that to go up to maybe about 700 by the end of today, but people should really be now getting their entries in for this kind of nowish because there's no more games to play today. The only thing you're really worried about now is the power of your cards going up when the last game week that I just showed you, when that actually finishes. SoRare attribute the XP to the cards. Some of them will level up, and then your power threshold might actually be defunct. You'll get an email from SoRare and they'll tell you to redo your lineup. I just realised the video's been going for about 6 minutes. I'm taking this far too long if I build up to actually get into this. So when I look at that, so I think to myself, right, 600 managers have been through the app, they're on their phone, they're on their laptop, whatever, and started to deploy their teams for the next match day. So when I look at this on SoRare data, this gives you historical the amount of lineups that go into each of the divisions, you know. So we can see it peaked out at game week 94 with 1,237 lineups. The game week we're in at the moment, we had 881. So we're at about 665. So that tells me roughly about 3/4 of the managers that played in the last game week. Bearing in mind the last game week was only really MLS and a little bit of Asian football, I think we're going to get back to game week 99, game week 100, that kind of level where we're looking at roughly 900 to 1,000 entries. So based on that, I think we've got about another half-ish, another kind of 100% of entries to kind of come out, give or take, into that D4. So when I use that as my base metric, and you can go back into SoRare data and see what I did, you can change it from All-Star D4 and you can change it to D2 Asia, D1 America. You can change it and it'll tell you all this stuff. It's very easy to get your hands on. I like to keep it simple and just focus on the division everyone should have at least one outfit in and be deploying in. So that means you kind of know how many active users are on, like this week kind of thing. What I'll then do is I'll go into training and then I'll go add a team. Now, you might be thinking, what the fuck are you doing? But what this gives me the opportunity to do without any restrictions is see every card that I've got that's available in this match day and who will be playing. So as I look at this straight away, I can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 goalkeepers, right? Now, Schubert may or may not play. Kripau is almost certainly not going to play, and Ruffier is almost certainly not going to play. So I take those 3 away from my 11. I'll get 8 competitive lineups. And I say competitive, loosely take that however you want to think about it. But I'll get 8 lineups that I can possibly throw out across all divisions with the goalkeepers that I've got. I already know from the way I've built my gallery that I don't have an excess of goalkeepers versus potential teams I can put out. Maybe a topic for another video. We'll come on to that at some point. When I look at my defenders, again, I can see I've got plenty. For the goalkeepers that I've got that I can get out and get deployed. Defenders, I was actually of the opinion for quite a while that I had too many, but as I look at this now, I think I've got a nice amount. I think the problem is a lot of my defenders are MLS, which means it feels quite congested when I'm trying to get MLS lineups out, but I can get these guys in under 23s and in the globals as well, which is cool. And then midfield, I've got a fair whack of choice, I would say, this week, certainly. Yeah, we've got great choice in midfield right across. We've got some of these guys towards the bottom that probably won't play. And then in the forward category, forwards and goalkeepers are the ones you're always going to be a little bit light in because it costs more money. But the top three strikers there are good. Johnny Russell, Ronaldo, Badji, Crepin Diatta, Lucas Alario. Yeah, we've got a good little clutch of players for this week. So, without further ado, let's get some lineups picked. Now, I'm going to start, because I've already kind of done this already. We're going to go with D3 Global, okay? Now, there's 155 entrants at the moment. That'll probably go up to maybe about 300 or so. So, about another 100% add-on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put out the strongest power lineup that I possibly can. Now, I've kind of done this already once or twice, but I'll just kind of walk you through it. So, Cisniga, power 9, at home at San Jose. San Jose are quite poor this year. I'm happy with that. In defence, we're going to go with the super rare that we picked up ages ago, Trippier. In midfield, we're going to go with the other super rare we've got, Jesus Medina. Now, he's a bit of a gamble, because quite simply, he's not been in great form. With Castellanos starting over Heber in NYC's last match, I was quite optimistic we'd have got a good result, but unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. So we hope for better next time. The strongest attacker we've got is Crepin Diatta at 9.6. And then with our extra player, we're just looking for the best possible player that we can possibly get in this lineup in terms of the match that they've got coming up. They've got decent power and likelihood to score quite high. And as I kind of scroll through everyone we've got here, also I kind of know who I'm going to go for anyway. But as you can see, we do have a fair amount of choice. We're up to 80 cards now. But I'm going to go with Memphis Depay. Second strongest attacker available after Diatta. The strongest would be Johnny Russell. I want to keep Johnny Russell for an American league in case he doesn't play. I don't want to, or not he doesn't play, but I'd rather have Depay in this squad, basically, is long and short of it. Now, when it comes to your captain, right, your captain is a vital decision, right, because as you've seen with the lineups I just showed you for the game week we're just coming out of, a difference in change to captain on one of the lineups and it'll probably buy another prize. So your captain is very, very crucial to those fine margin decisions that could make you a tier, rather than a tier 3 prize, a tier 2, or maybe even from no prize to get into tier 3. So what you're hoping for is somebody who's going to start, play 90 minutes, that's got to be your baseline, and then you've got the hope that they will have a valuable contribution to the match, score a goal, make an assist, not get booked ideally. And so with the players I've got available, it's really between Diatta and Depay. You can make an argument for Trippier, I suppose. Granada are quite weak, but Atletico Madrid are famously a 1-0, 0-0 kind of team. So as much as the defensive stuff on that might score Trippier quite high, I'm happier to go for a player like a Depay or a Crepin that could get to those 70s and 80s scores if they were to go and dominate their matches. In Bruges, the Bruges derby against Cicero, I expect them to win. And Leon away in Lorient, I would expect them to win as well. So I'm really flipping between these two guys. For the simple fact that he is on penalties and that kind of thing, I'm going to go with Depay. I think he's quite a safe choice for captain. And we're going to hit confirm now. Just before we do, I'm going to check the power. So we're 63.6 out of 66. So I've got a tolerance of 0.24. So if any of these guys go up in level by more, or collectively more than 2.4, then I'm screwed. I'm going to need to come back to the drawing board. But what will happen is SoRare will email me when they update the XP from the game week we're coming out of, and that finishes. They'll send you an email and they'll say your global D3 entry's been cancelled because it's now too powerful, and you've got an opportunity to go, right, okay, jump back in, drop this one for that one, and off you go. So I'm going to do that now, and then I'm quite happy. I've got enough of a buffer there that it shouldn't be killed by the XP changing. And then the last thing I'm going to do to finish the video out is I'm just going to do my global D4 entry, and I'm going to make it as cheap of an entry as I possibly can. So as you can see, the only real target, especially if you're starting out and you've got a cheap squad, you've not got much of a budget, is getting to that 1950 threshold, okay? So that's the main target we're going to have. If we do any better than that with this lineup, then it's a Brucey bonus. But all we're aiming for is a cheap team that will be able to bag us a tier 3 rare out of D4, just for purpose of an example, more than anything else. So in terms of goalkeepers, I had a comment in the video from the new SoRare playlist I did a few days ago, just saying it is quite hard to get a cheap lineup. You know, some of the prices I was quoting, you might not find in today's market, because I've been a little bit longer, I'm a bit more patient, and I've been quite fortunate to get on some of these MLS and J League players that I've got when they very first IPO'd, before everyone could get their ducks in a row and work out exactly who was valuable and who they wanted. So for that reason, I would say Kosai Tani is a cheap goalkeeper to me, but if you were going to try and buy him, you would not find him cheap. So I'm not going to include him. What I'm going to go for is I'm probably going to go with the SoRare, because SoRare is relatively cheap. I'm not convinced Farman starts another match after losing 8-0 to Bayern. Werder Bremen are not the worst opposition in the world. And yeah, so he's quite cheap as well. I think you can get him for less than 0.1 last time I checked. So I'd call him a cheap goalkeeper, certainly. In terms of defenders, we've got a lot of decent choice for cheap defenders. I'd call Gutman, Robinson and McKenzie my 3 reward cards that I've won in tournaments. I'd call all of them cheap, even though they cost me nothing. One of the Gutmans I did buy, of course. Richie Delat I got for free, I'd call him cheap as well. And Bemba I think is a fair price. I don't think he's cheap, certainly, because he has a goal scoring centre back. Mancini at Juve, I don't fancy it. Danny Wilson, nah. And Takuma Ominami. Now, Ominami did play the last match and got a 50 score, actually. I'm going to go with Ominami. I think I picked him up for like 0.06 or something like that. So quite he's dicey for whether he'll play or not. My midfield choice, my first one's going to be easy, because I always put in Arturo Isaka, because this is the only division I can get him in, realistically, because he's not under 23 and I don't have enough players for an Asian division entry. So Arturo Isaka always gets in. I think I paid like 1.154. Feel free to check me on that for him. And then strikers, now cheap strikers, like, so again, Albion Ajeti to me was dead cheap. I got him for like 0.1, but nowadays if you try and pick him up, maybe a bit more expensive. Johnny Russell I got for like 20 quid. Pania I got for nothing. Castellanos is cheap. You know what, Castellanos and Alario are still cheap than now, so I'm probably going to go with one of them. Castellanos started the last match, and do you know what? I'm going to go with Castellanos because Heber come off injured, I think, by all accounts. Let me check that. Yeah, Heber came on for Castellanos in the 55th minute and then was subbed off for Acevedo in the 88th minute, and by all accounts he seemed to be in pain and was stretchered off swiftly. So we expect Castellanos to start again, and again he is a cheap striker. I paid a little bit more for him than what you can get him for now. I paid what, 0.14 I think, but again I'm quite confident you can get it cheaper than that now. Last time I checked. Now our wild card player, if you like, or our fifth and final card. There's no one jumping out at me as an obvious choice in terms of someone who's good, cheap, and value for money in that respect. I'm leaning on doing the Ronaldo because he's a common card. Just again, I know he's a great common card. He's bloody Ronaldo, you know, but I think I'm going to go with Ronaldo as a common card to finish this cheap lineup out. Carlos SoRare would be a candidate if he wasn't injured. Seb Berhalter, by the way. I might go with Seb. I expect him to play against Toronto. I think I might go with Seb Berhalter, by the way. Let me pick him now and then hit the pro button. These scores are from... No, I don't think I'm going to go with the Berhalter. I've changed my mind and I went for Lucas Alario. Just an extra wee bit of firepower. I'm not really overly optimistic that Leverkusen will do well against Leipzig, truth be told, but I expect him to start up front. He is a cheap enough striker. So I'll just run you through this real quickly, okay? Big zoom. How did we do that? Castellanos. Right, so we get Castellanos, Isaka, Alario, Ominami, and SoRare, okay? We're going to go with Captain Isaka because he's just the best player, I think, in the lineup. I'm going to hit confirm. So Castellanos' 3-day average is 0.068. 2-week average 0.06. I've paid like something like 120, 140 for him, so well over the odds, okay? Alario, who we also put in, Last couple of days there's been no sales, but his 1 month average is again 0.065, nice and cheap. Ominami. Again, super cheap. You can pick him up for pennies. SoRare. As far as goalkeepers go, relatively cheap. Rare card average price. So again, as far as goalkeepers go, if he plays, that's a cheap enough amount to play. So who else did we have? Castellanos. I think this team is actually going to work out to be about a quarter of a coin. So we say SoRare was 0.1, Ominami was like the minimum amount. Alario was less than that. So Alario and Ominami get us to under 2 still, 0.2. And then with Castellanos, and then to Saka. Now with the Saka, we're going to be over a quarter coin for sure. Because he's about, wow. He has went super cheap. It's maybe not a quarter coin team, but by the way, it's a cheap fucking team. So there we go. We've pretty much done my cheapest, probably, and most expensive lineup I could probably put out for these 2 match days. They both go into the global, so All-Star D4 and D3. Wish us luck. I'm going to be doing entries into the D3, the 23, and the Americas, and the Champions and the Challenger Europes and all that kind of stuff as well, guys. I just wanted to make this video really for my own entertainment, and if you managed to get something out of it as well, then brilliant. Like, subscribe, share, retweet, all that good stuff, guys. Stay out of trouble, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.